Hey, good morning everybody. It's Bruce from Scrappy Rooster Quilts, and we're ready to get you the kits for block 2 of our Beyond Scrappy quilt that Beyond Fabric and Scrappy Rooster have partnered together to make. This is the February block. It's called Twin Star. Twin Star, and I love stars, and you will see similarity between January's block, which Sarah did, and this block. Let me go ahead and tell you, in my directions, I don't give a template. However, if you still have your templates from January from Beyond Fabric's block, those templates work for these units. You will just substitute my directions for the template cutting and stitching together. But let me show you really quickly how we're going to cut this and then how it will go together. And I'm not going to actually sew it today, but we're going to cut it and show you how it would piece together. It's really simple construction. So Dan's going to come closer and we're going to show you all of those. So I hope everybody's ready for February. You're getting ready for Valentine's Day. We love Valentine's Day, don't we? All right, in our kit, you're going to receive 3 pieces of fabric: your background, your lime, and your black. From your background fabric, we're going to cut one. Now this is by trial and error. So you're going to cut one 4.5 inch square. You need one 4.5 inch square. So I'm going to 4.5, 4.5. I'm going to rotate this and I'm going to cut my 4.5 inch square. Now listen folks, I'm sorry, you need 5 of those. 5 of those. There's 1. There's 2. Now you didn't see me do what I said I was going to do, starching. But now this first one, you're just going to need the squares. You're just going to need squares, so I probably wouldn't starch those squares, but if you know me, you know I talk about bias, and I am bad when it comes to bias. So I like to use some starch. But for today's demonstration, we're just going to cut and show you how to piece it together. So here's our 3rd, our 4th. Now you notice I don't use the lines on my board. I got used to, months ago, years ago, not using the lines on my board. So I just don't do that. Those of you who embroider, I keep these little pieces because you got a little embroidery applique thing. So that's good for those. I need one more 4.5 inch square. And we gave you plenty of fabric to get your cuts out of this one piece of fabric. So I'm going to cut, and as you can see, I'm going to have a little bit left over, which leftover is good because then it just goes into your scrap box or your stash box. So there is my 5 4.5 inch squares. Now you'll see in the block, those are going to go in the corners and the center. There's your 5 4.5 inch square blocks. Now that piece is not 5 3/4, so that's going to go in my pile to be used for embroidery or scraps, or pull out and use something else for something else. Now our big thing that we're going to cut now is these smaller 1/4 square triangles there, the white 1/4 square triangles. We're going to cut those next. To get those, now like I said, if you still have Beyond Fabric's January instructions, the template for both of these will work in this block. You just follow those directions. For this demonstration, I'm going to cut one 5 3/4 inch square. I'm going to cut one 5 3/4 inch square. Now listen, just like when you're building a house, measure twice, cut once. I'm looking, and hopefully, Hopefully I did that right. 5 3/4, 5 3/4. That looks good to me. So again, this is my leftover, and notice you have a good bit of little leftover pieces for your scratch pile. Now, once we have this 5 3/4 square, I should have pressed it. Once we have this, we need to make it into this small square. So here's what I'm sorry, quarter square triangle, because think about this. It would take 1, 2, 3, 4 of those to make one square. So we call this a quarter square triangle. To make that, I'm going to cut this diagonally twice. So, and I'm going to position it there so that I can make this cut, and I'm just lining corner to corner. Now this is where bias would come in handy. I mean, not bias, it's going to be bias. This is where starch would come in handy if you starch this down, and it's not going to move as much. Now before I do anything, I'm going to turn this ruler corner to corner here, and I'm going to make that second diagonal cut. And when I make this second diagonal cut, now you see that I have those quarter square triangles. See, I have those quarter square triangles for that block. All right, so I'm gonna put that aside because we're gonna use that in a minute. Now let's go to our other piece, which is our black. That's our other quarter square triangle. And if you remember what I just did, I cut a 5 3/4 inch square. I'm going to do that again. 5 3/4. I have to look at my ruler because sometimes, you know, those numbers go a different way. Now I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to cut another one, 5 3/4. And here's my scrap. That I probably would not keep. We'll put that in to use later for the doggy beds. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here that I did with this 5 3/4 inch square. I'm going to cut it in half twice, diagonally. So I'm going to line this up corner to corner. I'm going to make that cut, but then remember, I am not moving that fabric. I'm carefully lifting my ruler, laying it back down. Now rotating mat would work. Mine is on the other side. We're in the quilt shop today. I'm gonna make that cut again. So now there are my quarter square triangles for that match this. So now to make those, I'm going to take 2 of those and stitch them together to make this quarter square triangle. See what's going to happen? It's going to be a half square triangle now, so I'm going to take those, put them together, and I'm going to turn it around so I can see it. So I'm stitching that. I'm stitching, let me turn this around so I can, oopsie. So I'm stitching that one, and then I'm going to do the other 2 so that when I place them together, I have this unit. Make sure I'm doing them in the right direction. So I'll have this unit, then I will have this unit, and listen, caution, bias, and then this unit. Let me pull those off. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 4 half square triangle units of your black and your white background. So in the scheme of things, it would look like this. Oh, we'll put it together in a second. Let me put this square in the center, and then we'll build it in just a second. Let's go ahead and cut our lime, because now what we're going to have, so just put this aside, we'll come back to that in a second. Now we're going to cut our lime pieces, because we only need 4 of those. We're only going to cut 2 blocks, and we're going to cut them in half diagonally only once. So here I have my lime piece. I'm going to cut it 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. Now, I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to only cut 1 today, but if you know me, you know I'm kind of brave, and I would fold this together and make 1 cut, do it all. So I'm doing my 5 3/8, 5 3/8. Now, Miss Betty McCullough, thank you, Betty, put these together, and she did a marvelous job with our with the squares. So let me trim this way before I do anything else, and make sure I'm getting 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. All right, so there's my little scrap piece for that one. Remember, I need 2 of these lime, so I'm going to do 5 3/8 here. If you use your, and there's that scrap, if you use the lines on your board, that's fine. Just be careful. Well, be careful anyway. So here I am again at 5 3/8. Let me cut that one. There's that little piece. So now I have 2 5 3/8. And remember what I said, I'm only going to cut them in half 1 time, because I only need a half square triangle here. I only need a half square triangle. So there's 1, 2, and then here's 3 and 4. So now I'm through cutting. There's all my cutting. There's my half square triangles, of which I need 4 to complete this block. Now let's lay it out. So once you have this unit, these 4 units sewn together, you will stitch those right sides together to your lime. And so you're going to end up with this as a unit. You're going to end up with this as a unit. You're going to end up with this unit. Now it looks big because we've not sewn it. We don't have our seam allowances done yet, nor do we have it trimmed. So, you know, once you get these 4, see, there's your 4 units. Remember, quarter square triangles, quarter square, quarter square, quarter square. These are half square. Once the quarter squares are sewn together, sew them to the half square. Then you're going to make like a 9 patch. Pressing is important. Press to the dark as much as you can. And if you can't avoid pressing to the light, that's okay. Just try to press to the dark as often as you can. So here, without it being sewn, is how this block would then be assembled as a 9 patch. You would stitch these together, these and these. Now you're going to notice something right here. You're going to notice that these are quite large. You're going to trim these to 4.5 inches square. When you finish, you're going to trim your 4 combination units to 4.5 inches square. Once those are trimmed, you will stitch 3 together in a row. You will stitch 3 together here, 3 together here, and then stitch your rows together. I'm a stickler for pressing. I like my things pressed neatly on the back. So as much as you can, keep it neat, keep it neat. It just seems to fall together better when it's stitched and pressed neatly. Remember again, you can use templates. Templates were used on this block. This block is just strictly cut and pieced. Again, with these bias units here, starch will be your friend. We'll have these patterns in the packet for you, and they're ready to pick up today at Scrappy Rooster Quilts. Happy stitching.